Hi everybody, this is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's video we will talk about how to spot a spiritual copycat. As usual, you can apply this to any type of copycat or charlatan. I am going to be specifically referencing spirituality and metaphysics. If you are interested in one-on-one sessions, coaching, courses, or classes with me, please check out my website worldpeaceprojects.global. And a quick message to the inspiration of this video, TikTok Sour Patch, congratulations on the bun in the oven, way to keep it in the group. Now, one important note to make about spiritual copycats is if you're watching their content, receiving guidance from them one-on-one, or this can be in some form of a social media platform, it will be very rare for them to reference their research. The exception to this, and an exception to a lot of the rules that apply here, is going to be if they are to stumble across a video like this and try to up their game because they're working on how to not be spotted. It suddenly might happen that now, after watching a video like this, they will begin to reference their research. But as per usual, there will be a built-in insecurity around where they're accumulating their information and data, since it won't be in an ethical, moral means. The information will be presented as pseudo-wisdom, or knowledge that has an ego-forward, mental, and overly emphasized presentation. This is going to be because this won't be experiential knowledge of theirs. This will be knowledge that they're consuming on watching other people's content and information and then simply regurgitating it back in a form where they're hoping to look as though they have understanding and know-how. Now, it's obviously more difficult to spot a copycat when you don't know who it is they're copying off of, or maybe you're not aware of any of the information they're offering in the first place. So for example, let's say you are seeking spiritual guidance or understanding on certain metaphysical topics or spirituality. You come across, unbeknownst to you, a spiritual copycat. You might not know the difference because all of the information is new to you. Now, if you are somebody who is a bit adept in reading frequency signatures, it will be a lot more easy for you. Though, let's say you reach out to this spiritual copycat in hopes to maybe purchase a one-on-one session, have a consultation, what have you, then it becomes a lot more easier to spot. And that is because you can start to leverage their knowledge base and ask questions to get to the bottom of, do they have authentic experience and awareness in their background, or are they simply offering you concepts that have been learned elsewhere and they're presenting them as their truth. Now, when it comes to revealing inauthentic copycat, charlatan, mimicry type energy, Spirit will always send out obvious yet quite subtle honing beacons to protect and teach you. So just like we know our intuition to be, there will be a little niggle in your awareness whether you catch it or not, because Spirit wants to guide you into your higher truth. They want to ensure that you receive the information and the guidance that is safe and supportive for you, and not, of course, connecting with somebody who might lead you astray and has negative intentions in play in the first place. Creator is very protective and attentive towards all of us. It is simply if we are going to be aware that this is happening and listen to our intuition in the first place. Now, as I always say, the very obvious catch and tell will be in their eyes. Copycats, especially spiritual copycats, have deception, imposter, and monitor spirits in their field. There will always be a show in their eyes. This will be the tell hidden in plain sight. And it's a lot more easy to catch if you know how to read frequency signatures and if you've been listening and practicing on catching the entities that flash in their eyes. It's a lot easier to catch entities that come out, especially through the eyes, through video. Social media grabs this very well. And what's wonderful about a lot of social media is you can slow it down, you can rewind it, you can pause it to really look and spot the entity. When it comes to copycat entities, they will come out as soon as the person is lying or offering information that is not their truth. Even if this information is accurate or truthful, if it is not their truth in the way they're presenting it, that entity won't be able to hide itself. And this will happen frequently with a copycat, a spiritual copycat and copycat entities, because they're constantly giving you BS. Now, for me, the hidden awareness, so to speak, tugs at the side of my awareness, at the side of my energy body. It's like looking sideways at somebody or feeling someone brush past my shoulder without actually touching me. I feel the energetic movement, and that catches my attention, and then I begin to track what it is that I'm sensing. That's just my tell. Yours may be very different. Now, my mentor, Lauda Leon of Sovereign Key, taught me quite a while ago that this is a copycat reality. This matrix reality is a mimicked reality. Most of them are. And if we look at evolution, we understand that mimicry is a very important way that we have all evolved and grown. We become babes that now start to watch the humans and the people in our field, the interactions, and we begin to mimic and copycat and learn by example and experience of what it is we are supposed to do or not supposed to do, of what language we're meant to speak. So mimicry is a natural, normal part of our human evolution. So to some extent, there's not an issue when it comes to mimicking, especially when you're somebody who's new in a field, any field. We're learning, we're mimicking, we're memorizing, we're copycatting. So there's a very big difference between, in the spiritual realms, somebody who is authentically and altruistically working to become an experienced and mastered spiritual practitioner who is utilizing mimicry and copycat because they haven't found yet their true original spirit-based know-how and essence. It takes a while to tune into your authentic intuition, where you're coming up with the information and the wisdom first through experience of all of the shadow work you've done, and this takes years and years. Any mastery does. And then also to tap into trusted intuition so that you don't necessarily need to go study and research. Maybe you do just to have, foundational support behind what it is you're speaking on, but the bulk information comes from your inner truth, your spirit-based knowledge. It takes a while. It took me a while to get to the point where I can pull on my original authentic intuition and spirit can teach me. I had to fall into trust. So I mimicked for a long time. It's just the way it goes. So there's a huge difference between authentic, altruistic spiritual practitioners. A spiritual practitioner who believes that they are authentic, though they are driven by subconscious motivations that have ill intent, and somebody who is simply a charlatan copycatting out of greed, out of clout, for trickery, taken over by the entities, what have you. And I'm going to get into the difference of these and the intentions behind the entities here as well. But there are different sectors. We have altruistic, authentic, yet unexperienced. We have subconscious, ill-intended, under the guise, even they're not aware that they're imposing an imposter. They believe through their ego that they might be doing well, but this is ego driven. This is more about clout and being seen, having a platform, making money through the spiritual guise. Also the backing and intentions of the entities. And then over here we just have, a fake greedy thief who is grabbing information and imposing it onto others, which is quite dangerous, especially in the spiritual world. Now, in the last video where I spoke about sexually transmitted demons, we talked about how the demonic principalities have an inverted reality in comparison to our natural, normal orientation. Everything is flipped on its head, right? And in a lot of extents, so is this matrix reality. This mimicked reality is kind of upside down in regard to a true, original, pure spirit-based experience where people are navigating through their authenticity, the, government platforms, the worlds, the communities, the smaller groupings are set up to primarily work towards ethical and moral means. We simply don't live in a world where that is a general agreement, hands down, unfortunately. And so it's important to understand when it comes to copycatting, as they put it in, human design talks about the not self. My girlfriend just turned me on a bit more into human design. I love human design. I don't know a lot about it, but I really align with it. They speak about, and we all have this. In spirituality, we call this our shadow self. But a copycat is making a very conscious, subconscious choice to live as not self, to live an inverted reality upside down on their head, which means that anyone that unfortunately is following them is going to begin to experience this inversion. Things are going to be turned upside down. Now, when it comes to identifying a spiritual copycat, as I said, an easy way to do this is if you have a one-on-one session with them, you can pose questions, okay? Start to ask very specific questions. How is it that they received their personal experience on very specific topics? Hone into specific topics. What is it that they're telling you about yourself with conviction? This is important because in metaphysics, in quantum awareness in general, nothing is truly concrete. We talk about spiritual laws, there are natural laws, there are certain foundational understandings which aren't very movable in general, though when you're opening up to spirituality, when you're teaching spirituality and you're authentic about it, very quickly you begin to understand that your truth is simply your perception. Everybody has their own perception, reality, and versions, and everything is always changing. Things are all and nothing at the same time. It's very amorphous. And it's very important to open into a humble understanding that the more you learn, the less you know. This is a very important principle foundation at the core of true spirit-based spiritual practitioners. So if you're experiencing somebody who is coming forward with a very big ego conviction of what they know, the information is being regurgitated without any real emotional connection or backing, that should start to spark your interest and take care about what you're receiving, the information you're receiving. What is the spiritual shadow work that they have done? It is very, very important to understand that anybody that you're receiving guidance with and offering deep personal, emotional, intimate, energetic information with and stories about your life, details that you don't want everybody to know. You're doing this in privacy, and you're trusting in them. You're showing up vulnerable. That's a very big step for anybody to do. So to ensure that this is happening in a way that is safe for you, you need to trust and understand what is the shadow work that they've done. How have they made it to this place where they even have any know-how or authority or experience or mastery to assist you and support you in the guidance that you're seeking and that you deserve, and that you're probably paying very good money that you worked hard for to offer you this information. This is important. Now, often when somebody is BSing you around information and spiritual information, when you start to ask them questions or they're giving you information, especially in topics or areas that they don't have experience in, and they're efforting to pull on, the reference, the encyclopedia of information that they've worked to memorize, when you hit on a nerve or a vein where they're very uninformed, but they don't want to admit it, Their voice is going to pitch, it's going to get nervous, it's going to get louder. There's going to be a lot more ands and uhs and pauses and ums. My dad taught me a long time ago in regard to business, if somebody, a client, approaches me and says, you know, tell me about this, what about that? And I don't know the answer to that. He said, you always say to them, I don't know, but I'll find out for you and get back to you. This is something that a copycat won't do. They're going to immediately come up almost too quick with an answer for what you're asking, especially if they don't know it. They're going to start talking real fast and in circles, and they're probably going to repeat the answer that they're offering you several times in their response. Now, a copycat has a built-in insecurity around having all the answers and being a know-it-all. This is the source of their facade. Therefore, this area will be overinflated with ego in order to hide the true insecurity and the fallacy of the know-how. A copycat is going to idolize those that they're copying off of. Now, depending on the shadow character and the intentions of why they're copycatting in the first place, and the trauma flaws that they have, because there's always, all of us have trauma, right? If we're utilizing, if a way in which we're working through our trauma in the shadow realm is through copycatting, this is going to play into the intention around why they're mimicking. And it's also going to speak to the way in which they're going to subconsciously expose or be revealing how they're stealing from others. For example, if, as I said before, somebody's truly eager to learn, they're wanting to be authentic and altruistic, and they're simply pulling on people that they look at as mentors that have the know-how, that have the experience, and they're using their information in a way that really isn't ethical, but they're going to utilize cognitive dissonance to tell themselves it's okay because their intentions are good. They will often talk about the people in their work that they're pulling information off of, because they do look up to these people, they do mean well, and they are wanting to be affiliated even through reference with these, you know, maybe their mentors or the people with more experience. So they will talk highly of them, often note them, and then, you know, let's say you're somebody who's watching this person and the person that they're talking about, and you already know both styles, both spiritual practitioners, you might now start to see the overlay and how the copycat is pulling on the more experienced one's work. And you can make your own, you know, judgments and posits about this. Does it feel safe enough? Is it just that they're young in the field and over exuberant and, you know, taking information that really isn't theirs but trying to make it theirs? It happens all the time. I did it for years. This is much like, you know, a child mimicking their parent or their mentor. They want to be like them, right? And that can be flattering in its own right, but it can also be annoying because it's so super common that people are not understanding intellectual property rights. You know, they, especially on YT and all sorts of social media platforms, people are pulling from other people's work all the time when it is illegal. And there's a lot of, you know, YT takes this very, very seriously. It's also very unwise to pull on people's intellectual property because you are probably oblivious to the copywriting that they've already placed on any of their work, and that can lead you into very legal implications, very serious legal implications. Now, if they're pulling on information and idolizing somebody through more shadow trauma. Now, this has an ill intent. Now we're talking about the pseudo-spiritual practitioner who is doing this not just through greed, through clout, but they're taking a jab. They will both simultaneously idolize and loathe the practitioner, the authentic practitioner that they're pulling information from at the same time. They will absolutely project their responsibility of healing onto the authentic practitioner, even just within their being, and blame the authentic practitioner for their own personal issues. This will justify them stealing intellectual property because they feel entitled to the practitioner's unique energy signature. Anytime somebody is not able to take responsibility for their own trauma, they're going to project it out, and they're going to find a way to justify that projection and kind of mutate it in their viewpoint so that they don't have to take responsibility. They will usually view themselves as better than and owed the abundance that the authentic practitioner has self-created. This happens because they refuse to create originality. This is not possible for them, because in order for them to be original, they're going to have to face that they are a charlatan, they are a thief, and they are working through negative ill agenda, and possibly look at that they might not have any apathy for that and make that a conscious awareness, because cognitive dissonance plays a huge role in all of this. People love to sit in their cognitive dissonance, so they have an awareness, but they don't have to ground it into true understanding and clarity of presence, because then they have to admit these things to themselves. This type of person will always show their hand. They will not be able to hold back from slandering and comparing themselves, often publicly, depending on how aggrandized their ego is and how maybe narcissistic they are on the scale. They will begin to slander and publicly compare themselves to those that they're stealing from. They may even go as far as to say that that authentic person is stealing from them. And when this happens, this will absolutely appear. The entity will pop out in their eyes at this point. And there will be smirking happening, they will be real, like when they're slandering the person, which also, is very risky business to call a specific individual out on any form of social media. Has a lot of repercussions, especially these days, because now we're talking about defamation of character, right? Now, if they're just simply a copycat because they've decided to hone in into spirituality and metaphysics, they don't have any real agenda or ill intent to any specific practitioner. They just want the clout. They want to access theft, fame through that type of platform, and they have access to information that's readily available. This will be the person that absolutely becomes just like a walking encyclopedia. They're going to be offering a lot, copious amounts usually, in quick repetition, surface level metaphysical knowledge and mysticism through energy and other practices, awarenesses, modalities. Everything here will be simply memorized and regurgitated as facts. Now, the irony of this type of memorization and regurgitating spiritually based facts is that most of it will often be inaccurate. I've talked a lot about the false white light and, kind of spiritual bypassing and all of these fads and experiences. There is a tremendous amount of information in metaphysics and spirituality that is complete hogwash. And it's often the information that when we're starting to look into these types of understandings, spirituality and practices, we begin to follow. This is the information that's kind of based around making you feel blissed out and aggrandized. It inflates your ego. It has you believing in the types of things that you're the chosen one, you're very important, you're set aside from everybody else, even though there's this weird, like cognitive dissonance around we are all one, but you are the chosen one. It gets real messy real quick, but it's all based around you boosting your ego and inflating your self-importance with a spiritual metaphysical stew kind of thing, right? So this type of information is usually offered and presented in concrete facts, and it's usually completely off base. This is often the type of information that copycats will begin to push. And this is because it's very difficult to ground and understand and have true authentic awareness about metaphysics if you don't have the experience. Metaphysics, a lot like, totally different, but a lot like quantum physics or very specific, detail-oriented practices and avenues of learning. It's real hard to BS your way through it. There's so many different factors and components and understandings and levels and layers that, it can become quite obvious if you're trying to pretend you're an advanced practitioner to see that you don't know what you're talking about, because it just starts to go in all sorts of directions. Nothing can be grounded or honed into. It's, you know, it just gets real weird real quick. So they're going to focus more probably on simplistic awarenesses that aren't accurate in the first place. They're based around these kind of spiritual bypassing that's just meant to make you feel good about yourself without even doing the real work. And another key important awareness around this is, again, as I said, you know, our truth is very personal to us. A truth is very malleable. It is very specific to each individual scope of reality and experience. Truth change all the time for a person. So do belief systems, right? So anytime somebody is presenting you in general, for the most part, with a lot of different concepts as a spiritual concrete concept, that should already be a key and a tell that this information is fallible. Nothing in this quantum multiverse is truly concrete. Now, let's talk about the entities that are marionetting these copycat people, right? If we think about the AI algorithms and the mass data assimilation, collecting and harvesting that's happening, we see this all the time. Most of us are very aware that this is happening, right? This is the exact same thing. These entities are sneaking into the host, as we've talked about before, and they are now working to, just like algorithms, pull the information, consume and harvest data. Different types of entities have different intentions. This can be a monitoring spirit. This is when the copycat is highly prone, susceptible, and compulsively addicted or obsessed with spying on those they're copycatting. This shows up in the eyes in a very different way. If we think about Mad-Eye Moody in Harry Potter, right? Mad-Eye Moody has one large glass eye that moves in all directions like a chameleon. If you look at a lot of the news anchors, a lot of the people in Hollywood, a lot of people on social media that have a big platform, you can see, especially at certain times in their career, that one eye is obviously way different than the other one. This is because the monitor spirit, the AI monitor spirit, hacks into the eye and now starts using it, consuming and harvesting data, just like a satellite or a video through that eyeball. So that's an easy catch because it's more one eye than both, all right? And then, we've got other types of entities that maybe are trying to hone in specifically on those that are spiritually seeking, or, specific people of interest. And this can go pretty quickly into the handling and covert programming projects that a lot of you might know about. We're not going to go into that here. But as my mentor likes to talk about, the AI metal gods and the Red Queen are just tickled pink that we're all readily availably offering all data and awareness around human, nature, and animal interactions through social media. We are giving them up on a platter, handing them everything in every way that we function and navigate so that they can start to mock this up on an AI simulated platform even more so. Okay? Same thing happening through spiritual copycatting. These entities will absolutely be behind the host, marionetting them. And this is often the main reason a lot of people go into the field in the first place. They believe that they are truly, authentically seeking and wanting to help others when these entities are pushing through them to gain information and access. The Borg will have taken over the copycat person at this point. The Borg will desire very specific details to the clients and the consumers seeking out the copycat's information. If copycats are focused primarily on certain authentic practitioners, it is because the Borg wants access and awareness of how that authentic practitioner is receiving and accumulating their information. They want to hack in, especially if this authentic practitioner has done their work. They are not accessible to these entities. So these entities keep working to get in, and they're going to try to do it through that person or through that vein. The copycat person's thoughts, emotions, false persona will be completely hacked, hijacked, and controlled by the AI and the entities. They will not be aware of this. Same as we talked about with demonic attachments. They might have some kind of background awareness, but again, there will be a dissociation around it, a cognitive dissonance, because they can't take responsibility and face that. Now, it is very important to understand the dangers of working with spiritual copycats. The entities are always attacking, spying, and harvesting energy. They want into the client's energetic field. Now, this happens whether the spiritual copycat has authentic, altruistic intentions to help people, or if they are simply an apathetic user with motivations of greed, clout, and entitlement. Often, if you have worked with a charlatan, their alter aspects will begin to appear in your energy field. They're going to begin to show up maybe just in your thoughts. It'll be an imposition throughout your day. They show up in meditation. They might show up in your dream space. And spiritual attacking starts to happen. Okay? Now there's a difference between an authentic practitioner showing up in maybe their more celestial form to assist and guide you. They might not even be conscious that they're doing this, but there's a different feeling around it, right? And you will trust your intuition to know that. When somebody is presented to you and they're not physically in front of you, how does that energy feel? You know, are they showing up does the energy seem sketchy or weird, or does it seem loving and benevolent? You're going to have to gauge that for yourself. And is it appropriate for you that they're showing up in that way at that time? Because you are always welcome to set up your energetic boundaries. Now, for the most part, I will say in general that all spiritual practitioners that are authentically, genuinely working to heal themselves and assist others before they've made it to a point where they are healed enough that they cannot be hijacked, they cannot be taken over. They have cleared out any entities that have imposed in them and that are hijacking them, and anytime entities come forward to do that, they catch it and they spot it. This takes quite a while. This takes years and years of mastery. Just like any other field, it takes years of experience and mastery and dedication and hours of blood, sweat, and tears put in. It's just the way it is, right? So it's quite common for most spiritual practitioners, when they begin to move into the field, that they are not cleared, that they have hijacking happening, that they have cognitive dissonance around it, that a big part of the reason they're drawn to the field is because of the entities that are pressing them in the first place. And this is going to be more obvious when you start to look at, if you are a spiritual practitioner that is new, you're not fully cleared yet, you're going to look at the clients and the customers that you're attracting. They're usually going to be filled with entities, with energies that are pressing your boundaries, that make you uncomfortable, and you don't feel clean and safe after you work with them, right? How do you feel around your clientele? That's a big tell of where you're at personally. Now, if you're somebody who works specifically as a demon slayer and you're attracting all of these entities all the time, but you're on top of your game and you know how to work with that, it doesn't bother you, you don't mind that these entities and these demons are coming at you to press your field because you're on it, you know what you're up to. That's a different story, because at the end of the day, you feel clean and clear, safe and protected, right? But there's a huge variation. Are you feeling sick and tired and susceptible and drained and siphoned all of the time? This is because you are still vulnerable and susceptible, and you are hacked and you are hijacked. And this is a very difficult thing to admit to oneself. When I realized this about myself years and years ago, my mentor pointed it out to me. I was already in this field for several years. I had done so much work to clean and clear and heal myself of hacking and hijacking. And then my mentor made it, undeniable to me to see that I was still under the influence of being hijacked, and therefore I'm putting my clients in danger. I was horrified. I was devastated, and it was life-altering because at this point, I was full-time already in this line of work. I absolutely never wanted to injure or harm or put anybody, expose them to any type of entities consciously, right? But subconsciously, I have aspects and alters that are still very much in that shadow energy. I didn't know what to do. You know, hands down, first thought is, do I just completely abandon this field? That's the safest thing for all of my clients and customers, and probably me too. But the reality is then I have no job. How am I going to pay my bills, right? So I pondered on this. I had a lot of deep cries. I stayed up nights on end. I did work nonstop on myself, and I completely shifted the way I worked. And a lot of you long timers with me saw this shift, and I talked openly about it. I moved out of all energetic access. I stopped looking at anything astrally. I stopped tuning into the entities and even into their energetic fields, and I started focusing primarily on emotions. Okay? I only allowed myself access to the things that I knew were safe to work with. That's why now I'm aware that emotions in your physical body are our home court advantage, right? And I made a shift very specifically that really pissed off my entities and my alters that thought they had me duped, that did have me duped, that my mentor called out. And I geared it only and specifically to healing emotional trauma. By doing this, I completely bypassed any way for them to get in and hijack me or my clients. And I did this for years. I focused very specifically on this in my work as while I did my personal work to clear out all entities and energies. And it took a while. And then I finally got to the point where now I knew that I was unwaveringly cleansed and cleared, and I had my checkups as often as I needed, right? And then I could open back up to the energy and the astral. And there's a lot of trickery about, because these entities, they know how to hide. That's what they do. So I totally understand how devastating it can be when you have to admit to yourself and realize that maybe you're a copycat, and that's the last thing you want to be. But it's really critical and crucial that you do, because if you truly authentically are working in this industry to help and heal, you need to know when you are doing the complete opposite, when you are putting people at danger, when you're putting yourself at danger. It is a huge responsibility that you need to take on to yourself. And when you take on that responsibility and you admit to yourself that this may be happening, you immediately are already going to be clearing out a lot of the entities that are working in your field, banking on your cognitive dissonance. And you're already starting to up level and take responsibility, because it's a huge responsibility. Now, spiritual practitioners and charlatans alike are highly susceptible to spy entities and all sorts of beings that want access into your etheric field and clients' etheric fields. This is why it is so important to have extra vigilance and due diligence around this type of work, because everything is hidden. This is an industry of hidden truths, hidden entities, things that are unseen, what's behind the veil. And this is very intriguing to a lot of people, and a lot of people jump into this very blindly and naively because it's interesting and it's fun and it's mystical and it's paranormal. Though there's a lot of serious ramifications behind all of this. So we need to take this seriously and understand the responsibilities when you start tapping into people's energy fields, your own energy field. When you start working with modalities that you have been taught and told and trained into, that specific words, entities, I don't care what type of entities they are, if they're angelic, if they're ascended masters, any type of energies, beings, entities, symbols, what is it that you have been told and that you're using that are supposed to be helping? Do you know that, hands down for sure? Or do you just believe that because it is what you've been taught, like in school? Take care with what it is you're utilizing. What spell casting are you offering? What effigies are you working with? What talismans are you utilizing? Has your intuition told you what's really happening, or are you simply taking the information that you're learning, believing it, and regurgitating it, right? because entities love to put up a false front from what they truly are, tell you all sorts of things, make you feel all sorts of ways, but that's just a show, okay? Now, shapeshifter energies are a little bit more difficult to spot. A lot of copycats are shapeshifter energies, and they're harder to put a finger on because the nature of them is shapeshifty, right? But that's also one big way that you can tell the difference. Shapeshifter energies are difficult to pinpoint. Their frequency is off, and it's often bouncing and jumping. You know something is strange about it, but you can't put your finger on it. That right there, know something's different about it, but you can't put your finger on it, is the tell that you might be dealing with a shapeshifter, right? This type of copycat is quite elusive. When they're shape-shifting during copycatting, especially if you're watching them, they're going to look different all the time. They're going to constantly be looking different because it's, shapeshifters aren't meant to hold form. They're meant to morph. Also, the information that they're going to be offering, in the way that they're offering it, and the tone that they're offering it, and maybe the stance that they seem to have taken before is going to keep shifting around it because they don't know how to hold it in a steady, stable way. The key to shapeshifter energy is to understand that the nature of their energy is very squirrely. It's meant to change up all the time. This is going to be true in their, personal lives as well, because a copycat is obviously a facade that's presented to you, but if they're a shapeshifter, they're a shapeshifter, right? If they're a spiritual copycat, they're copycatting other aspects of their life. If they're a spiritual shapeshifter, they're a shapeshifter in their reality as well. So if you know them personally, or maybe, let's say they have some sort of platform where they offer you access into their personal life, you're going to see it in different fronts. Now, if you are consistently attracted to copycat energies, especially spiritual copycats, then I would highly suggest for you to find and heal the copycat in you. This is a reflection and a projection of what's going on for you inside. If you're constantly being eluded, you're finding yourselves approaching practitioners, spending good money, receiving information that's taking you down the wrong vein, or it's even opening you up to harmful information, or contracts with these people, because when you make an agreement with a one-on-one practitioner, it's very important to know this, right? You're contracting, just like with anybody. Okay, so if you don't feel comfortable and confident with who they are and their awareness and know-how, you're unbeknownst to you making contracts with these entities. Okay, and this can have ramifications and repercussions. I all the time have clients coming to me telling me horror stories about how many different practitioners they've worked with that either just didn't help, it was total BS, or, it took them a long time to get that person out of their field. This happens a lot, and it's quite unfortunate, but it's just the name of the game. So make sure that you trust and you feel comfortable with your intuition on, who you're working with. And when you work with somebody, what is it that they're wanting you to tell them? What are they wanting access to? Is it too much personal information? Is it too very specific on ways in which, they want you to utilize their information? Or, gauge how you feel of your comfortability and your trust, and how does your body feel intuitively around approaching this person? It's a very important exchange that you're making. There should be a lot of trust built here. Even if you're simply watching somebody as a spiritual practitioner and you're taking this information to heart, this can be potentially life-changing information. So you want to know, and you want to have your own ability, your own instincts and intuition to trust what it is that you're attracted to. So if you're consistently finding yourself attracted to spiritual copycats or copycats in life in general, look inside yourself. Where in you are you copycatting? How are you not being authentic in your truth? That can help you and that can heal you. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give me a like and a thumbs up. If you guys are interested in one-on-one sessions, coaching, classes, courses, please check out my website, worldpeaceprojects.global. I hope you're fantastic. Take care. Bye-bye.